Next, let's talk about this company, LendingClub. Well, LendingClub is actually just one example. In fact, what we want to discuss is about P2p lending. So P2p lending obviously is a platform, it's a multi-sided platform, right? So you do have some borrowers and you have some lenders. Lenders are talked with borrowers to lend some money, and you as a platform, you get some commission fee. Basically, that's the idea. Okay, so now our question is the following. Suppose you do LendingClub. Do you want to do customer screening? That means, do you want to say only some consumers who satisfy some conditions may use your platform to borrow or lend money? Okay? So basically, when you think about this question, this is somewhat similar to your previous one. Suppose you control, then you're going to have fewer consumers, but their qualities is going to be higher. Okay? Here, quality probably means high quality probably means lower risk. It's less likely for them to default or to run away without repay the money, something like that. Or if you don't do any control, if you do some open strategy, all right? If you open to everybody, you're going to have more users, but typically they're going to have lower quality, all right? So obviously the trade-off is pretty much very typical. So now coming back to this issue, do we want to have first mover advantage? That means we first enter a market, try to get big fast, so that we may utilize network externality to get a lot of consumers. That's pretty much your opening strategy, right? But if you do that, consumers would be hesitate because they believe you have low quality at the other side. That kind of information asymmetry is going to limit your growth potential. All right? But at the same time, if you don't do that, if you just do controlling, you don't get big fast, then there may be some other competitors, they're going to get your consumer, or you don't really have your important network externality. So the consideration is very typical. Then what we want to do in this particular case is to tell you two things that are somewhat specific for P2P lending. So the first thing is that if you want to do P2P lending, somehow you compete with banks, for example, right? So P2P lending must have some new ways to deal with this kind of risk issue. Because if you borrow some money from the bank, you somehow trust the bank, right? Or if you save money to a bank, you feel fine. But if you borrow your money, or I should say, if you lend your money to some strangers, you feel uncomfortable, right? So there must be some kind of risk diversification strategies, strategies made by P2P lending platform. So what does that mean? Suppose I have some money. Let's say I have 10,000. On a platform, seems that I'm going to lend my money to someone who need 10,000. But then I'm exposed to some risk, because if this guy goes away without repaying me, I feel sad. All right? So what a platform really do is the following. The platform is going to use some mechanism powered by some advanced technology to, for example, split my money to 5 parts, okay, each with 2,000. Okay, so whenever someone comes to the platform to try to get some money, they actually get money from many borrowers, many lenders. And for a lender, he or she actually lend his money to many people. That's going to reduce the risk that must be bared by this single lender. Alright? Because it's so unlikely that everybody goes away at the same time. Okay, so pretty much that's something a platform must do. So if you want to do this, certainly you need to have a lot of vendors and a lot of buyers, right? That's something require you to have network externality. You really need to have a lot of users so that this strategy, this risk diversification strategy is going to work. That's one thing. Another thing is that, well, we're talking about bank as some kind of competitors, right? So banks is going to set some bars. They only deal with those consumers who are good enough, okay? So if you don't have good credit risk, if you don't have any financial statements, you're not going to be allowed to borrow money from banks, okay? So as P2P lending platforms, basically you are considering to deal with consumers who will be rejected by banks, typically. Okay, so maybe you want to set a lower bar or a higher bar. It depends, right? If your bar is low, that's pretty much you're doing an opening strategy. So all the consumers from here to there, they will become your consumer. Or if you set a high bar, then you are doing control strategy. Okay? So the thing is that if you are talking about opening, if you try to get big fast, who will be your consumers? You will get a lot of consumers that are actually bad consumers in some sense. Okay? Why they are bad? They are bad because if they are good, they're going to a bank. They're going to borrow money from banks. All right? So in this particular financial services, this is the unique feature. Okay? The unique feature is that if you are a leader, if you are a first mover and get big fast, actually you are going to get a lot of bad users. Okay? So this is true in this case, but maybe it's not true in other cases. Maybe you may consider Airbnb. Okay? So Airbnb goes to a market or goes to a city and say, hey, if you have a house, you may come here to lend your house. So there will be a lot of house owners. If Airbnb tries to grow in that particular city, and if you have good owners whose houses are very good, if you have bad owners who have very bad house, who will go to Airbnb first? It will be those good users. All right? So if Airbnb try to be a first mover, try to get big fast, everything looks fine because good users will go to Airbnb first. But for LendingClub, if you try to get big fast, you first get bad users. That's actually not good. Okay? So all in all, what I want to say here is that, well, if you may have different opinions, but if you ask me, I would say I don't feel very comfortable about this business, P2P lending. Okay? In my opinion, this platform is not easy to work because it's hard for you to say that you want first mover advantage. If you get big fast, you get you're going to get into troubles because of this bad users issue. You do need users to do risk diversification. But if you are only dealing with those bad users who cannot get anything from a bank, then it's going to make it very difficult to do successful business. All right? So I'm not saying that I'm always right, but take this into consideration in your future analysis. Okay? We always want to be first mover. We always want to get big fast. But if we try to do that, who will be our users? Take that into consideration. Okay?